Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. this morning. Thank you for joining us. In the true spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge all those who call this land home now and for thousands of years in the past. May we respect each other and find understanding together and recognize the benefits that this land provides to all of us. Councillor Hickey is attending a grand opening this morning and then meeting with a couple of ministers. So thank you to Lauren for tackling that this morning for us. He may join us later, and Councillor Kurbis is away this morning on some other business. So thank you for those that made it today. We can move down in our agenda to item B, adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda? Eric?
Yeah, I'd like to move the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving down, adoption of the minutes. Before you, you have the minutes of the September 7th, 2023 County Council meeting. Are there any errors or omissions or any issues arising from the minutes? Claus.
I'll move the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Claus. Claus has moved for the adoption of the minutes of the September 7th, 2023 County Council meeting as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those are carried. Thank you, Claus. We can move down on our agenda. Item D, subdivision applications. With that, I would invite our Supervisor of Planning and Development, Hilary Jansen. Morning, Hilary.
Good
Morning,
morning,
Steve.
Mr. Chairman and Council. This morning we have for you just one subdivision application for your consideration. Acting as the subdivision authority, I'll pull up the map for you. This subdivision is located not within the hamlet of Diamond City, but just on the east side of the hamlet of Diamond City. And the applicant is looking to reconfigure two titles just to make the one title larger and more developable for their own personal use for country residential uses. As you will note on the map, there is a road right-of-way that goes through this particular area. This road right-of-way, Council may or may not remember, last year there was an application to close this portion of road and consolidate it to the adjacent titles, and that was with the end goal of completing this particular subdivision so that they could have one cohesive parcel. The road closure has since gone through. We've received notice from Alberta Transportation that they have signed off on it. This particular road closure was done by resolution, so it didn't go through the bylaw process. It was just a resolution by council, which you approved last year. And so with that approval from Alberta Transportation, the applicant is now able to proceed with the subdivision. You'll note the number on the subdivision is quite low. So they did apply early in hoping that Alberta Transportation would approve their subdivision earlier, but there's a bit of a backlog with regards to road closures going to Edmonton for approval. But with that bit of history and context, just so you understand the parameters of that, I will pass the rest of the planning comments and the recommendation to Steve Hardy.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Steve.
This application in front of you is not so much true subdivision in that sense, but more of a land reconfiguration, amalgamation of the parcels out there. Is to accommodate a land swap and property line parcel size adjustment between adjacent title lands. As Ms. Jansen mentioned, this application has taken a while to get in front of you here. They first applied back in January, so we're getting almost 9 months here in order to get in front of you for decision, which is largely due to the road closure component that was involved and taking some time to get back from the ministry. But now that we have that, we have it here in front of you. The basic purpose of this application is to line the boundaries, to add land to a smaller undeveloped parcel, and then make the parcels more logical the way they're used, and then to include that portion of closed road that was sandwiched in there along to the landowner's parcels to enlarge it. The westerly portion contains a yard site. There's some improvements out there, while the easterly portion consists of some coulee land presently. So the application involves consolidating a portion of the undeveloped municipal road along with an existing west, there's a 2.97 acre title, which is just runs parallel to the road. And that will form a larger north 19.4 acre parcel. And then the south remnant portion will form the residual title comprised of 15.75 acres. This other portion contains the existing main yard with a residential dwelling and accessory buildings on the west side. The readjustment will allow approximately 7 plus acres of developable land above the coulees added to the north reconfigured lot of the 19.4 acres. So, as you on the screen there in the airport, is still showing some of the old council plans and stuff underneath, but so I tried to just show you a better visual of the land swap that's going on there, these color visuals in your package. So that first one at the top there is the existing, the yellow is the smaller parcel, and then the larger in the beige there with that gray road in between that was just closed. And then once that is consolidated in the road closure, the parcels will be reorientated in a north-south parcel shape. So we go down basically from 3 tiles down to 2, and there'll be 2 larger parcels rather than the one small and the one larger. So the bottom there, number 2, is what we'll end up with in the end. So as a result of this reconfiguration, both parcels will have access from the west across the CPR line that connects to 3rd Street Southeast in the hamlet of Diamond City. The north 19.4 acre lot also connects to the north portion of the municipal road, which is a road plan there that will remain open. So access won't be affected, they won't be cut off. The existing residence is serviced by the water co-op and has on-site private septic field system. And the north parcel of dwellings that were put there will be serviced in the same manner. So this application for reconfiguration meets your policies of the bylaw. A couple things with this application. One is that it is identified in an area by the province of potentially containing a historic resource of 5A and P, which is archaeological and paleontological. Historical resources did not waive their application requirements, so the applicant will have to apply to them for historical resource clearance. So that would be just the initial review where historical resources take a closer look and they come back with a description and instructions of whether they have to do something at this point, or I suspect typically in this type of case they'll just say that if you're developing on the land, you know, digging a hole for a basement, that sort of thing, and you discover something, you have to report it to us. But they'll have to go through that process just to see what historical resources says. One of the other things is that this is an area also flagged for some potential underground mining activity. The existing residence yard has been out there a long time, hasn't experienced any issues. But there again, if there's any concerns with that, the county can address that either through putting some clauses in the development agreement at this stage, or just capturing it at the development permit stage if they do decide to come back and want to put some buildings out there, or a residence with a basement or that sort of a thing, that it's addressed at that time that they might have to do a geotechnical investigation. But one of the other matters for your consideration if granted approval is just addressing the municipal reserve. In the past, the existing smaller parcel in the yellow there by the road closure, the 2.97 acre, when that was created, they paid municipal reserve at that time, so that portion of the land is paid. There's a deferred reserve caveat on title. So with this reconfiguration, at the very least, it should be provided on the north piece so that you don't have a situation in a parcel where it's partially paid and partially not. And the subdivision authority, the county, can only address or take municipal reserve through the subdivision process. But with the other piece, it was never ever paid. And due to just this land, the coulee land involved, the orientation, kind of the limited access there, the likelihood after this of further subdivision creating more lots is very unlikely. So the recommendation and approval here is for you is just to have them pay the municipal reserve on the entire area and clean it off, since you can only deal with it the subdivision process. Alternatively, you could have them paid on one and put a deferred reserve caveat on the south piece or something like that. But like I say, the likelihood of further subdivision is very, very low. So with that, as part of the referral on here, there was no concerns expressed. None of the utility companies required easements with it. The only, I guess, request is from Alberta Culture, as mentioned, for the Historical Resource Act application. So with that, and since the road closure has come back now, is completed, I have recommended an approval to you. It does conform to your realignment, reconfiguration of titles policy. And this application, in the end, we're going from 3 titles down to 2, with that road involved there. The application, the parcel sizes and that exceed what's required. So with that, in your package, I have recommended an approval to you with the conditions that the municipal reserve be provided. That value came in at $12,000 per acre, and that once that's paid, that the existing deferred reserve caveat registered on title be discharged and adjusted accordingly. The other conditions would be the taxes are paid and up to date, a development agreement entered into if required by the county, which could address such things as the geotechnical evaluation for future development, that the applicant submits a survey plan, and that the consolidation is done on those parcels. And the fourth would be that they submit their Historical Resource Act approval and just submit a copy just to demonstrate that they have done that as requested by the province. So with those 4 conditions and the reserve being addressed, I recommended approval to you.
Thank you, Steve. Excuse me. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. Are there any questions from council? Claus and then Morse.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the Historical Resources Act, usually we have to have approval from them before we can go ahead with something. Why is this so different?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it just depends on the response we get back from Alberta Historical Resources and how they word the letter or what they request. Depending on the area and the land and the intensity of the proposal and that sort of a thing, there's 3 or 4 different typical comments or requests they'll come back with. And in this case, it's just that they have to apply for their clearance letter. And when they ask for that, usually what it means is that Historical Resource will take a little bit closer look, and then they'll come back with instructions to the applicant saying, this is what you need to do. You either need to do upfront archaeological survey, or you don't need to do anything at this point, and you need to, if you find something, advise this thing. So that'll be, their instructions will be to come on that once they make their formal application.
Morse?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That 12,000 they gotta pay, is that on that whole subdivision area or just on the 19 acres?
The recommendation would be, because there's limited opportunity to re-subdivide this particular parcel, that it would be owing on the entire amount, which would come to the whole 32 acres?
32.18.
32.1 acres.
35?
32,
32, and that's 12,000 acres?
yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Hillary or Steve? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have similar concerns. Like, we have a map saying that at one time you thought we're gonna resplit this up, and yeah, that's not happening at this time, but it's been investigated for the southern portion to do more lots and other splits. So I guess I could see that there's a chance of re-subdividing it in the future for the southern portion. And then also the 12,000 an acre on coulee land is, even if we try to average, seems a bit rich. But, yeah, I could see a portion of this going for re-splitting, so. And maybe you could, yeah, comment on that. You said like it's because it's coulee that they wouldn't be doing it, or what would keep that from happening?
Sure, I can answer that, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Van Essen. With regards to the possibility of them subdividing even the southern portion, or the northern portion for that matter, the coulee land would play into that. They would be limited opportunities. That shrinks their developable area quite a bit. The other consideration, especially for the southern portion, is the access. So crossing, they would have to obviously build a road network into that southern portion. Across CP rail, they'd have to get approval for a better crossing. Even though that area is just used for storage, rail car storage at this point in time, it's still considered an active line by CP rail. So those are the kind of the two, I guess, limitations and how the area has been developed to date in terms of re-subdivision of the parcel. But notwithstanding that, you know, if council feels that there's an opportunity to have that split again, that, as Steve mentioned, we could put a deferred reserve caveat on that southern portion. That's pretty much council's prerogative as to what to do. It's just we don't see that likely that it's going to be re-subdivided, but that's just our take on it based off of how the area has been developed so far.
Thank you, Hillary. Any other questions from council? Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Tori. I'd like to move that subdivision application number 2023-0-003 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Sorry, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved that the recommendation that subdivision application 2023-0-003 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion from council? If not, I will call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you,
Mr.
Hillary.
Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. We can move on our agenda. Item E, Department Reports, E1, Municipal Development and Infrastructure, E1.1, Bylaw 22-011, Road Closure, Sale and Consolidation, Road Plan 8419HB, second and third reading. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regards to this particular bylaw, let me just pull up the map. This particular road closure application came to County Council last fall, or last summer, I should say, for your consideration at the first reading, and then also at the public hearing. At the public hearing stage, there was no comments or concerns with regards to this particular road closure, which would essentially close a portion of Range Road 23-4, which was the old Highway 23 at one point in time. And for the applicant to consolidate those lands, which they have been historically using for their own purposes, to actually consolidate it to their yard. At that point in time, County Council did proceed with moving that forward to Alberta Transportation for their approval. And as of couple weeks ago, I did receive the bylaw back from Alberta Transportation. It was signed and sealed. So essentially they have approved the road closure, and now it goes back to you for formalizing the road closure process for second and third reading. Having no concerns and that Alberta Transportation has approved the road closure, the recommendation is that second and third reading of bylaw 22-011 be both read a second and third time. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hillary. Any questions from council? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that bylaw 22-011 be read a second time.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved that bylaw 22-011 be read a second time. Any discussion? Call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Third reading. Claus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that bylaw 22-011 be read for a third time.
Thank you, Claus. Claus has moved that bylaw 22-011 be read for a third time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council.
Under E2 Corporate Services, E2.1 Tax Penalty Waiver Request, roll number 03020000. And with that, we have our Director of Corporate Services, Jennifer Place. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, I have a tax penalty waiver request here in front of council. As council knows, per the Municipal Government Act, these waivers have to be done at council's consideration. A letter was received from a Mr. Van Heerden regarding tax roll 53020000, explaining that his payment had been made on the property taxes by the due date of July 31st. However, on August 14th, he had learned and was notified by the county that the payment had been returned and an NSF fee and tax penalty would be applied to the tax roll as it was now deemed unpaid. Within his letter, he does indicate that the payment was returned due to a clerical error made on their part with regards to which account the payment was made from. So again, therefore, fees were applied. He has paid the outstanding taxes and the NSF fee, but was looking for a waiver on the penalty. So the penalty amount was $302.67. Of course, council does always have the option to waive the penalty as requested, which would obviously satisfy the request, but would likely set a precedent for future requests. And there is a bylaw in place with regards to how and when penalty is applied, or same applies if they just wanted to waive a portion. I have attached a copy of Mr. Van Heerden's letter for council's information, and I'm open to any questions if you have some.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's, there was a mistake made, and that's why it was returned, right? But that Mr. Van Heerden down there, he gave it all the great attempt on that to have it in there in time. However, there was a mistake in the,
That's my understanding from the letter.
yeah, so when it was there, and then the mistake was discovered after the deadline, to me, I feel that something like that, you person should be looking at. Yeah. However, yes.
Thanks, Morris. Any other comments from council? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not easy. These are some of the ones that I have empathy for what goes on, but I also understand how it is not the county's error. The county did not misrepresent or do anything outside of our diligence, and it's unfortunate. But if you had a hired bookkeeper and they screwed up, you would say, well, bookkeeper, it's your error, take care of this kind of thing. So in that regards, I don't feel we have an obligation to waive the penalties, and for that I will move the recommendation that County Council not waive tax penalties in the amount of $302.67 as requested, tax roll 53020000.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved the recommendation that County Council not waive tax penalties in the amount of $302.67 as requested for tax roll 5302000. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
We move down, item E, 2.2, Stirling Wind Project Community Funding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an interesting proposal that was brought forward to the county. It was actually Hillary Jansen was contacted first, and it was forwarded to my department. So the county was contacted by Pentanina Renewables to discuss the community funding they have through the Stirling Wind Project. A copy of the agreement has been attached for council's information, but the program was developed as part of their community relations commitment and provides contributions back to communities in which wind turbines have been constructed. So for the Stirling Wind Project, which is both for the County of Warner, which has 9 turbines, and Lethbridge County, which has 14, there's a $25,000 annual commitment that they are willing to make through this program, and the county would be eligible to receive $15,217 of those dollars. So the contributions would be provided to the municipality annually to be distributed back to the community through an application process, and the applicants who would be awarded any funding would be awarded by both Stirling Wind Project representative and the county to determine which applications are eligible. So I did include a copy of the agreement here, just in speaking with their representative with regards to how the funds could be used. It's specifically for community benefit, which is outlined and we can go through in the agreement. They do have some requirements where if it was to be split, that 60% of, or no less, I guess, than 60% of the funding go towards their fixed allocation portion and 40% towards their open allocations, which are outlined in the agreement in Articles 5. One of the fixed allocations that I thought was interesting was scholarships. So ideally for those that were entering into the field of science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. I know during our scholarship application process this past year, council had discussed looking at increasing that or having more applicants available. So this would be an opportunity through this program to do that. And I believe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was a minimum of $2,000 for that portion if it was to go towards the bursary. So if council just wanted, I'll find out what page it is here for you in your agenda to look at Article 5. We can look at what the eligible allocations are. So I think that is page 8, starts on page 8 of your agenda package, or for this report.
Yep.
So as mentioned, 60% of the allocations is for fixed and 40% to open. So the fixed allocations are for environmental education, so environmentally focused programs. I won't go through all the details within, but primarily in county schools. University or college scholarships with a minimum of 1 scholarship to be awarded in the categories that were mentioned. Annual maximum $2,000 per scholarship and $4,000 in total if you decided to do more than one. Community fee assistance, so this would be a subsidy program that provides funds directly to programs on behalf of eligible individuals to access recreation, arts, libraries, etc. And the remaining funds could go back into F.2A or B, so it would just kind of filter back if there was any remaining funds after county determined the distribution there. And then the open allocations are related to accepting applications for locally based registered organizations. So these could be, they have to be submitted by March 1st of each calendar year. And then, of course, for community services coordinator in cooperation with, sorry, that doesn't, I'm just reading it out loud now. Yeah, so for community fee assistance program basically is what the rest of it is for. And then they have the environmental enhancement, social welfare, arts and culture, so on and so forth. So I did include Wheatland County is involved in this program right now with their wind turbines. I've included which the representative for the Stirling Wind Project provided what their application process kind of looks like in some of their allocations, which I thought was pretty interesting. So they have an open allocations to a maximum of $10,000. They mentioned the environmental enhancement, social welfare, arts and culture, which is, you know, outlined within this agreement for us too, health and wellness, education, so on and so forth. They didn't mention the scholarship in there, so I'm not sure if they do a scholarship one or not. But I just wanted to mention that because I thought it would be of interest to the county. This agreement would be a 25-year commitment for the $15,000, so it's, you know, it is an opportunity for the county to give back to the communities in whichever format they determine, at no cost to the taxpayers. So I'm bringing forward this to see if this is of interest to council, first of all, and if so, my recommendation would be to direct administration to sign the agreement, and then to bring back a plan for how the community funding would be distributed with council's direction, of course.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Claus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. When did this start, and when did we agree to go into this agreement, and how long are those windmills going already?
So we haven't agreed to anything as of yet. We were just contacted earlier this year, to bring this forward to council. So there's, as far as this specific agreement, there's nothing in place. With the wind turbines, I'd have, oh, Hillary's not in the room.
I can speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In my side of view, I think the last one came online this week, I think, for the project. They're just buttoning it up right now.
But as far as an agreement goes, we haven't entered into anything. I think this is just this community benefits program that they have as part of their, I think, policies and strategies with having the turbines in the area.
Did we expect this, Jen, like prior to when it came to us? Was this in any of the initial discussions that Hillary would have had around the planning development? Was this brought up, or did this come relatively recently?
I was not aware of this. I'm not sure if it came up during the application process or not, but I believe they just contacted Hillary, and then she had a conversation with them and forwarded it to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council? Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. You might not have this answer yet, but what's the chance that we could have FCSS do some of our delegating of the money, or it even supporting that to some extent?
I mean, we can definitely, if council decides to go this route, it's a conversation we can have with FCSS for sure. I'm sure they have some individuals or knowledge of people that might be eligible for some of these funds.
How would you like to proceed?
One other question.
Oh, so go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have in that agreement, I read through it, but anything that stood out to you as an obligation that we have to fulfill other than delegating the money appropriately?
Just, I guess, our partnership with the Stirling Wind individuals and representatives. So the awarded applicants would not be at the sole discretion of the county, if that's a concern.
Anything else? Claus?
Okay, then I'll move that the county council direct administration to sign the community benefits agreement with Stirling Renewable Energy, and that administration bring back a plan for the community funds projects effective for 2024.
Thank you, Claus. Is there any further discussion? Claus has moved that county council direct administration to sign the community benefits agreement with Stirling Renewable Energy, and that administration bring back a plan for the community funding projects effective for 2024. Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
We can move down. E2.3, Fire Services 2023 Department Update. And we have Byron Fraser, our Manager of Fire Services. Good morning, Byron.
Good day, council. How are you guys today?
Good, thanks.
Good. Just get my fancy PowerPoint up for you guys here. It's a little easier than just reading stuff. I like pictures anyway. Okay. Perfect.
Whenever you're ready, Byron.
All right, thank you, council. Just bringing you an update of the first half of the year of happenings around fire services and around the county within our department. Am I going the wrong way now? Okay, so in Lethbridge County, in the first half of the year, our fire services responded to 67 calls on Alberta highways, 82 fire calls and alarm calls, 25 MVCs within the county, so those are ones that are not on provincial highways, 106 medical first response calls, special rescue calls, totaling 281 calls in the first half of the year. See if this will work. So this time last year, just to give you an update in comparison of calls, we were only at 229 calls. So 52 more calls in the first half of the year for our fire services. So that's 4 departments. You know, that's one every, you know, third day, every second day kind of extra, right, across. So they're definitely responding to more and more every year. They seem to keep increasing. In regards to the new Coledale expanded area where we used to have Lethbridge cover, Coledale's responded to 47 calls in that area. Those numbers are blended into the ones I had on the other screen, but just so you know them separated out. We've issued 565 fire permits in the first half of the year, which is quite a few considering we did have a restriction or I never put a ban on it all this year, but we had a restriction on for part of that time, especially during the big fires. 112 fire safety inspections, so that's us going out into businesses and making sure they're safe and meeting codes, and 13 fire investigations. Now those are fire investigations of a dollar loss fire. So anything that has a major loss, we're required to do those investigations. So overall in the first half, 13, I didn't check the numbers, but I think that's actually lower than last year. So that's one good point. Accomplishments in the first half of 2023. We last year approved the moving forward with the grant application that Pitcher Butte applied for. So we received $200,000 for the implementation of the regional emergency management system. So that was a big plus. Pitcher Butte applied for it. They're the grant holder. But yeah, it's for the regional initiative in that sense. Myself applied for a $4,500 grant for fire training that we use for all the fire services in the county. So it's kind of over and above what they applied for and get to do. So it's kind of nice that we can add to their training schedule in that sense. We helped transition Coledale into the new response area. It's been very successful. You know, of course, at first we had a few complaints from citizens that we had to address and understand their concerns. But overall, it's been very successful, and we haven't had any setbacks from the change. Fully implemented the new records management program. So before we used, you know, across all the fire services, none of them were using the same ones, and if they were, they're old, outdated ones. So we've implemented a new records management system that all the departments are on board, and so we're all putting all data in regard to fire services into the same program. So it's super handy for me to be able to pull stats, you know, enter information, calls like that. If I go out and do an inspection or a pre-plan or anything and put it in, any of the fire services can log in and see it. So it, you know, as soon as one department does it, everybody benefits from it. So super awesome program. We did implement with Public Works hydrant testing and maintenance program. You know, over years when it doesn't be in your forefront of their work when they're out and about, a couple things get missed. And luckily we found a couple issues and got them fixed up, but all it did is promote that, hey, we need to have something set out so that, you know, we're proving that these systems are operational and that in the case of emergency, they'll operate, right? So that's a new program we put in place this year. And we got past a firefighter directive so that now some of our staff that are already on volunteer fire services are able to respond, you know, under certain conditions and stuff to go and help the fire service. So we never had that before. So. Yep.
So that is, I always thought the volunteers, that's remarkable that they volunteer for one, and that the other one is that the county is doing it now. But what about the businesses? Are they fairly cooperative on letting the volunteers go when there is an emergency?
Yeah, thanks, Morris, through the chair. Businesses are really good. We're gonna try, and I'll hit it on the next slide here, to really push and really, public education in the community. Overall, the businesses are really good. The ones that we start to get as the volunteers go more and more on calls, which we've seen we're getting more calls, we're getting a little bit of hesitation just because it's starting to impact their business too. But overall, no, I'd say the businesses are awesome. And glad now that we can be a part of that too from the county of, letting those people go and respond to emergencies. So kudos to the businesses. And like I said, coming up in, I guess it wasn't the next slide. Coming up in the future of this year, we're really going to push, supporting and giving information to those businesses so that they understand why we're doing it and need it and stuff like that. So, yeah, you bet. Just a little tidbit about the regional emergency management, kind of where we're at. We talked about the $200,000 grant that we received and will be managed by Pitcher Butte for the regional emergency management system. We've awarded a consultant with that money, Trace Associates. What they're going to do in the next little bit here is create some bylaws, create the ministerial order to bring to council for approval, and put together a draft budget too, so that we know, where we headed and what this program's going to look like. They're going to be performing interviews coming up right away here. They're reviewing right now. We're sending them all of our current emergency management documents. They're putting them all together of all the different municipalities to, what are some comparisons, what are some overlaps, what are some stuff that's not being done. And then they're going to be performing a HIRA report, which is a risk analysis report. This probably won't be till 2024, the risk analysis, just by the time they meet with all the involved partners and put it together. But what that'll do, and actually you'll see from me coming up in the next little bit as well, is a risk assessment for our region. Mine will be more from the fire service side, where this one will be as a whole EM side. So you just see the hazards we have that are potential to cause destruction around the county. So super excited to get that program going. I think it'll be a great asset, all the municipalities working as a team, and having the top people from not just Lethbridge County at emergency management, but across all the municipalities within Lethbridge County. So super pumped about that. So what I'm hoping to work on for the rest of the year, I had mentioned already, is just high concentration on prevention and education initiatives throughout the county. So we're gonna, be out in the public, get a lot more stuff. A good example of the kind of stuff that's worked super awesome is our fire permitting program. I have had 0 complaints about that. It's worked amazing. Talking with Dave, he comes and asks me, our CPO, he asks me all the time, does nobody burn anymore? And our burns are actually way up, but everybody's following the rules and stuff through the education process of that. So our responses, which most of those turn into negative impacts with the citizens, are getting less and less because of the system. So I'm going to really push through education initiatives coming up the rest of the year for different aspects, not just the fire permitting program, right? Going to schools, educating them for life safety stuff, all that kind of stuff. We are working on the fire services agreements for the contracted departments. They are coming up in 2024. So working on some changes and upgrades to those. Bring a level of service document to council. I'm working on that right now of, what do you guys and what are you hearing from your people of what they expect from our fire services? I think that's important to have laid out, because that depicts where our contracted departments or even our home in-house departments move forward, right? So, and then we're working on with finance right now on budget for 2024. And that's all I have for you guys. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Byron. You mentioned, obviously, we're trending upwards in calls. As far as our partner departments go, are they being able to maintain their volunteer numbers and keep up with that, or are we seeing burnout, or what's it like in the communities that help and partner with us?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair. Volunteer in the whole scheme of the word is becoming more and more difficult every day that goes on. It's just not the culture of the world anymore. So they are a lot of struggling. Departments that used to have a ton of members are reducing. Now, luckily, we have committed members to each one. But Coledale, looking at, taking on expanded area and stuff like that, they're definitely seeing an increase in hit on their volunteers going to so many calls, right? They're, Morris talked about the businesses and stuff allowing, where's that point where they're not going to want to allow those guys anymore, and then we're really in trouble, right? So overall, I give kudos to all the volunteers. I know what it's like. I came from that world. It's a huge commitment. We're going to also be promoting and pushing the rest of this year, just pushing the need for volunteers because they are drastically declining. Good thing we have the people that are committed as they are in those volunteer stations so that they keep going. So right now they're keeping up, but we're heads getting closer to the water. So
Thanks, Byron. Go ahead, Morris. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember very well yet because I had several friends on the volunteer fire department in Picture Butte, and one time I volunteered too, and the fire chief that was in place in those days, he was a volunteer too, by the way. This is probably about damn near 35, 40 years ago or whatever. But it was all volunteers, 25 of them. However, I volunteered too, and there's the fire chief, I'm not gonna mention his name, I will later. But anyways, he is gone, he was a great person. But anyways, and he says, we don't want you because you're a farmer. When we need you, you're not around. And that was kind of hilarious. But the big thing is, at that time, I'm pretty sure they had 25 volunteers in Picture Butte. And they didn't have near the department at that time to look after them what they do now. But it was all volunteers.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's, if I may add to that, you're absolutely right. It's all volunteers committing all that time with new OH&S regulations, all that stuff coming in, new services that we ask them to provide that necessarily we don't ask. It's just they come across as new hazards, new whatever as things go, and it's a huge commitment. You get an average volunteer that's fairly committed. For them to put in 10 extra hours a week of volunteer time is not crazy, right? It's a huge commitment. So yeah.
Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with that, all the volunteer, kudos to them. It's unbelievable that these people are willing to put all their time in there and everything. What kind of compensation do they get?
Each department, if I may, through the chair, each department or each station does it a little bit different. There's nothing standard across the board. Most of them get a decent little extra when they go on calls or go to training. They do get compensated for some of those hours they put in, but it's maybe minimum wage, some of them, some's a little bit more. And they don't get paid for everything they do in that service either. Some departments, actually Picture Butte is the last one in the county that is full volunteer. They get a lot of perks and stuff, but as for honorarium, they do not receive one. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty confident that's the case. Picture Butte's the only one. Otherwise, the rest of them are, anywhere from that $15 to $20-ish an hour to respond on calls and to train and stuff like that. So they get a little bit, but nothing major.
And there's no difference between going out for the town or going out for the county?
No, they pay, because we fund them per call right now in our service. So they pay their responders going on a call period if they pay them. Yeah, there's no broken up difference. The station responds, period. So.
Anything else, Byron?
Nope, I think that's good if there's
Awesome.
nothing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. Yeah, just echo what you said. We're very fortunate to have the people that are willing to step up. It's a tremendous service to all of our residents and their residents as well. But yeah, just a big thank you to those volunteers and those departments for everything they do. And also, I would echo your sentiment. I think the permitting has been well received. I've also received a lot of positive comments about how streamlined that process is, and it's made it a lot easier, and I think a lot less contentious as well. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Byron.
Take care.
We can move down in our agenda. We had an item F, correspondence. However, we are going to coordinate with the province on that for a more formal announcement. So we'll skip over that one for today, and we will move down to item G, our county council and committee updates. Number one, our Lethbridge County Council attendance update for August of 2023. And I will start with Lawrence. August 3rd, the Lethbridge County Council meeting. The 10th, Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center grand opening. The 22nd, Whoop Up Days pancake breakfast and parade. And the 24th, the Brighter Together food journey reception. For myself, Division 2, I had similar commitments as Lauren did, as well as a Chinook Arch Library Board meeting. Attended Coldell Summerfest Candy Parade. Thank you to CAO Beck for piloting the parade for us that day, and thanks for Mark and Maddie for helping to throw some candy. It was unreal, the turnout that they had in Coldell that day. Worked a couple of casinos in August, one for the Friends of Chinook Arch Library Society and another for Exhibition Park. And on the 29th, was able to meet with CanRIA. Evan was in the area from CanRIA, and they are the federal group that represents renewable energy developers. So it was a good conversation, candid conversation about what's going on in the province with the pause. Meryl, Meryl Harris from the NDA Tabor and myself attended, and kind of gave some perspective from rural municipalities, what we're up against as far as solar and wind development. And yeah, it was a good conversation. I think we're all looking forward to moving forward and working together on some solutions that both the industry can benefit from and municipalities can move forward. And with that, I will throw to Division 3, Councillor Mark Sayers. Mark.
Thanks, Tori. It was a quiet month. The two highlights for me were the Coldell Candy Parade. I really appreciate the work the staff does in getting the floats all set up and organized, and it's a lot of fun getting out there and engaging with the public. The Whoop Up Days Pancake Breakfast, again, was a great success. We learned from last year and taking notes already. The exhibition is super excited about having us involved, and just really appreciates our support and willingness to help out with that event. So, and the last thing we did was attended was the Brighter Together food journey reception that was held at the new Agri-Trade Food Hub. So that was a good event. So that was it for August.
Thank you, Mark. Division 4, Deputy Reeve John Kurbis. For John, August 3rd, County Council meeting. John joined us virtually. The 12th, the Nobleford Parade. 21st, meeting with Community Futures Executive Director. John is now chairing Community Futures. 22nd, Whoop Up Days Pancake Breakfast and Parade. 23, Powwow Grand Entry Celebration, as well as the 24th, Powwow Grand Entry Celebration. And on August 26th, John participated in the Coldhurst Parade. Division 5, Councillor Eric Van Essen. Eric.
Yes, thank you. August 3rd, council meeting. August 10th, went to Tabor for Southern Regional Stormwater Drainage Committee meeting. Very interesting, and looks like a lot of good progress being made there. Went to 4 parades: Nobleford, Picture Butte, Whoop Up Days, and Coldhurst. And that was the month.
Thanks, Eric. Division 6, Councillor Klaus Vanderveen. Boss?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So August 1st, I had the phone meeting with the consultant, Kevin McPhillip of Economic Development. And August 2nd was Link Pathway, and yeah, it is moving ahead. Link Pathway, it's a lot slower again than should have been going on already, but there was some misunderstanding there, and I think that's all put out of the way, and I don't know if anybody's seen anything, but it's supposed to be going right now. I don't know if anybody's seen anything. And then we got the SEWA AGM coming up, the 22nd, that's actually tomorrow, and so there we have, I was chair of the nomination committee for that meeting, and yeah, and then of course Picture Butte, the district, the harvest, and then we have the parade. Thank you.
Thanks, Laws. Division 7, Councillor Morris Eenstra. Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council meeting on August the 3rd and August the 9th, CU. And that was a CU division tour with our great manager, Cote Beck, CEO. That was we had a good tour. And he asked way too many questions though, but anyway, that's besides the point. And Agri-Food Hop and Trade Center, that was a good one, the grand opening, and Picture Butte, great, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Morris. Anything coming out of the county councillor attendance updates? If not, that concludes the public portion of our meeting for today. We move down to H, closed session. We have 2 closed session items. The first one, ACP grant, FOIP Section 21, disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations. And the second, a public utility discussion, FOIP Section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party. With that, I'd entertain a motion to enter a closed session. Mark? Mark has moved to enter a closed session at 9:59 a.m. this morning. Is there any discussion? Not, call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. session at 11:14 a.m. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Whenever you're ready, Jeremy. Welcome back. Our meeting at 11:14 a.m. this morning. Arising from our closed session, we have 3 motions. I will lead off regarding to item 1, our ACP grant discussion. Our first motion, who would like to make that? Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So move that Lethbridge County supports the City of Lethbridge submission of 2023-24 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Regional Water Concept Development Study Project. There is no matching contribution required.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? We'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Our second motion, Mark.
I'd like to move that the Lethbridge County supports the Town of Tabor's as managing partner submission of a 2023-24 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Regional Wastewater Concept Development Study Project. There is no matching contribution required.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is also carried. And our third motion, Claus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that the Lethbridge County as managing partner to submit an application for the 2023-24 ACP grant in support of the regional waste study. Letters to be sent to the other municipality partners for participation.
Thank you, Claus. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Eric? Eric is motion to adjourn at 11:16 a.m. this morning. Thank you very much, everyone.